Live.
Yeah,
All right,
true.
awesome. All
Bam.
right, so welcome to
Close
Over
this
My
chat.
Head podcast number 2, right? Okay, this is always going to be
Two.
me never knowing what the number is. But, yeah,
If you can't count to two, Aaron, there's not much hope for us, I'm
okay.
afraid.
I'm Aaron Ruby. This is Will Ruby. Say hi,
I'm
Will.
Will Ruby. Camera cut over to me. There we go. That's great.
Awesome. So what are we talking about today?
So like we teased a little bit at the end of point 5/1, we're going to talk a little bit about home film developing, which is something I've been attempting to do with not a lot of success. So I have all these props, and I have so many props.
So
So,
before we get into all the props, why would you want to do home film developing when there's perfectly good developing companies all over the place?
that's actually true. So I was taking my film to. I've been shooting film again because I'm super hip. For about a year now, I think. I was looking from where my first film scans are from.
So
I
what's
think
your
it's about a
camera?
year ago.
What
Um, I
camera are you
had
shooting on?
I had two cameras that I was shooting on, and one met a very sad fate that we won't
Why?
go into.
I wish I hadn't brought it up now.
But the other is a Canon AE1, which is actually the camera that you and I learned on. You'll remember.
That
We
is,
borrowed from our grandpa.
yeah, that's the official camera of the 1984 Olympics, if I remember correctly.
That's true, including its 50 millimeter 1.8 lens. It's sitting over there across the room. I don't actually use the 50 millimeter lens, and it was the one thing in my apartment I didn't cluster within arm's reach of my computer screen to be able to demonstrate. There's a lens just out of reach over there, but I can't quite make it. So.
So you're shooting film, you wanted to develop your own film.
Oh yeah, so the reason I wanted to develop my own film is one, it seemed like a fun thing to do. Two, it's expensive, and it's actually more expensive to pay for the developing and the scanning. So I was going to a place in San Francisco that did both, and they do a good job. A little low res maybe on the scans, but you know they treat your negatives nice. They give you the nice plastic sheets to keep them from getting dusty and all that. But it was like $20 a pop. Like it was just a lot of money.
So you get like 24 frames scanned for $20.
Yeah, and that was if it was in a roll. If it was already cut up for some reason, because some sort of crazy person had attacked your negative with a knife, it would cost more money, I think. But since they were doing it all in house, yeah, it was $20. And so I tried with a digital camera. I did the home scanning thing without wanting to buy a scanner because, you know, the whole
Yeah.
thing is to save money.
Right, so you didn't have, like, a lot of people will use a flatbed scanner with maybe like a film attachment. You didn't
Yeah,
do that, you did something totally different.
I didn't do that. So what I first did, and I want to show it to you, but I couldn't find it. I cut a piece of cardboard about film sized, um, and then I stuck that to another piece of cardboard with a larger hole in it, and then I stuck that to my iPhone and turned the iPhone screen on, taped it all together, so there was a white iPhone screen, and the film was being fed through this cardboard holder just above, and then I would take pictures with my digital camera, and, you know, voila, you got beautiful, barely in focus film scans. The second version of that I can show. So this is my awesome light reflector that I
Okay.
use. So you set this up kind of thusly, you know, and then you
So this is
the
like
light.
a softbox for light, kind of. Light
Yeah,
bounces
so it
around.
so it smooths the light out so you don't get a weird
Well,
shadow, you know.
let's go back for a second. So the setup that you just described, you kind of made your own light box, which like, and
Yeah, light table.
people who actually have film cameras and negatives and stuff, they would have a light table with probably
Right.
like a fluorescent inside of it that they would use just for like looking at their negatives under a loop or
Right.
positive prints, right?
Yeah, or
Um,
slide film. It would be a positive, yeah.
so you kind of made something like that, but used an iPhone as a light source, and
Yeah,
then
because
like,
it's cheaper than a piece of glass and a fluorescent light, right?
but what was the problem? what was the problem with that? Because
So that's actually a good question. The big problem with that was that I was so close to the screen that the pixels were in focus. So I was getting little chunks of pixel on my nice noisy negatives.
yeah, so you would take a picture of the film is this, and then the phone is right next to the film. They're sitting together like that.
Yeah.
And because that light source was so close to the negative that you're actually taking a picture of, you would see the pixels inside of the phone screen.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just because they were, yeah, so my phone was here, the negatives were just sitting immediately against it, so exactly like you said. The other problem is if I tried to pull the negatives further away, so I took a larger box, I cut a hole in the far end, I put the film here, I was shooting at such a close distance because I don't have a long macro lens, that the light wasn't large enough. Right, so there was a little tiny rectangle of light in the center of my negative, and then there was a lot of negative that the camera was seeing that didn't have any backlight. So it wasn't working.
What kind of distance was that? Like, how far away was the negative from the phone
camera?
at that point?
So I started shooting this with a point-and-shoot I own that has macro capability, but I've since moved to shooting it with my SLR with a macro tube. It looks like this. It's just a thing that goes between the lens and the camera that makes it able to shoot up close and not able to do much else.
Yeah, so like normally a camera lens is going to be like, what's the close focus on the lens you're using normally? A couple of feet?
Yeah, 2.5 or 3 feet probably. It's a 40 millimeter pancake Canon lens.
Okay, so that's that little like short, under an inch thick pancake lens.
Right, and it's a nice lens, pretty sharp, but yeah, it can't focus close at all.
Slow though, right? Isn't it kind of slow?
It's fairly slow. I'm shooting it slower than wide open anyway, just for sharpness.
You just want to make sure that it's all in focus, so you're stopping down a little bit.
Yeah, and everything isn't moving ideally unless there's another earthquake, right? So, I have the tripod with the camera on it, the macro tube. That lens is electronic, and this tube doesn't have any electronics pass through it. So I have to attach the lens to the camera, stop down, hold a button on the camera, focus it, remove the lens, attach it to this tube, and then attach that to the camera, and then the camera's good to go. Then it sits...
So the lens being electronic, it needs those signals from the camera to get the correct settings, and you have to kind of like set it up before you rip it back off the camera.
Right.
And then attach it to this tube.
Yeah, so when it's powered off, it'll hold all the same settings, but to actually change anything, I have to put it on the camera, do all the changes, and take it off. So ideally, once it's set up, you just don't muck with it. So to answer your original question, once that's all set up, I'm about an inch off the negative.
And then what's the problem with just taking a picture of the negative with the 40 millimeter lens, whatever, a couple of feet away? Like, it would just be too small in the frame at that point to be high resolution?
Yeah, I mean, the whole point was to get higher res scans than I was getting. The other lens I have used is a 24-105. So 105 is a telephoto. So that doesn't have the same problem. I can be a little farther away. It also has physical controls on it, so I can control it when it's not attached to the camera. It's also huge. So when I attach it to this thing, I just worry about it. So I put this huge lens on this little flimsy $15 piece of metal, and then I stick that to my camera.
And that's the 24-105 that Canon makes, the f4?
Yeah, that's also slow.
And it's manual?
The focus rings and things, the aperture's not.
Aperture's not.
Yeah, I can't even focus the pancake when it's off, though.
I didn't realize that. It doesn't have a focus ring on it.
Yeah. Well, it has a focus ring. It's electronically coupled. It's a sensor that moves a motor.
All right.
So yeah, once we got that all set up, I would set up this bounce card again. And then I bought this enlarger plate from a photo supply store in San Francisco, and this would normally be used in a photographic enlarger to make prints. You'd put your film in it, and then you'd project light down through. So it's made for holding film and also allows it to slip through without opening it up. It's smooth inside. So I set this up against a T-square on my desk, so it stays true with the tripod and the camera.
Yeah, you just want it as perpendicular as possible, so it's the film negative as flat as it can be against.
Right, so everything's in focus.
Yeah.
So I set this all up, and then I take a picture. And then once it's all set up, it normally only takes, like, I don't know, 5 minutes to go through a roll of film, because it's all on lockdown, so you just feed one of the film frames in, take a picture. Feed one of the film frames in, take a picture. So assuming it's all set up right, works a charm. But I was doing this, and I got it in my head, well, this isn't hard and ridiculous enough, Will. You should probably try home film developing. And a good friend of mine is I don't want to misrepresent his skill set. He's a chemical engineer. And he, coming at it from the other angle, I'm interested in it kind of from the arty, hip kid angle of analog photography. He's coming at it, oh, this is kind of a fun chemistry problem. So he and I got together, and I have our high-tech notebook here of all of our formulations, and we were researching the ways you can do this, and there's actually a home developing method called Caffeinol. So you can home develop, you can go to the store and buy Rodinol or another commercial developer, which is just a chemical cocktail that you mix with film to make it turn into pictures.
Probably carcinogenic. Not really good for the environment.
Smells bad. Yeah, it hurts your hands, kind of. But it works. It's what labs use. It's a very consistent and reliable product. It's not that sensitive to temperature, at least for black and white. It's very, it's all very good. So you need a developer of some kind. That's the commercial option. Rodinol, I think, is a brand name. There's potentially other options there.
Okay, so just take a step back for a second. Like, film developing, I don't even know, I kind of know, but like you expose film to light in a camera.
Right.
And then the 3 more steps would be you have to expose that film that's been exposed to light to chemicals that will create an image on that film. Because the film has photosensitive chemicals
so the
embedded in it.
It's got an emulsion, it's called. So it's like a chemical cocktail of some flammability that's stuck onto this plastic sheeting. You run it through the camera, you open the camera for a certain amount of time, the light hits that and causes a reaction, but it doesn't show anything. It's still
that's some kind of silver probably on the film that when it's exposed to light it darkens.
Right.
Or like what happens there? It reacts to the
it reacts to the light
somehow.
Right. But it doesn't. It's not a picture yet.
This is the over my head part of this podcast.
Part of this podcast.
I don't actually know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the light hits the film and causes this chemical reaction. So you then, when you're done shooting the roll of film, you roll it all up back into its canister where it's safe from the light. And then you have to treat that canister with chemicals. There's 3 steps in that process. You use developer, which is what makes the images appear on the film. So based on the light hitting the film previously, this developer interacts with the film and creates the negative image. 2, you fix it. Is that right?
You might have to rinse it first.
Let me look at my notes, actually.
Once you develop it, and if that developer stays on there, it's going to continue lightening the image or darkening the image. How does that work?
Yeah, so you put it in the developer, and then that reaction takes place over time. They actually put substances in developers to slow it down because it's not on a human-controllable time scale that it would happen normally. So you just have an image, and then your film is ruined. So they slow it down, so there's actually some ability to control this process. So with a commercial developer, it's in the range of like 4 to 5 minutes, depending on the ISO of your film. Once you have it developed, you need to get the developer neutralized and gone because it's in your film and it's making it darker. So you use something called stop. You could rinse it aggressively, but you can otherwise mix this chemical in called stop, which neutralizes the developer and gets it out of your film. So then you have a nice, clean, but still photosensitive developed picture. The last step is fix, and that makes it no longer sensitive to light. So that's the final part of the process.
So without fix, that film would still react to light. The image would get brighter and brighter, and then until it was just a white sheet that came out of it, right?
Well, the opposite with the negative.
Right, the negative would get darker and darker.
Yeah, cook and cook and cook and cook. Yeah. So, like I said, there's commercial options for all these chemicals, but me and my chemist friend, wanting to do the hardcore thing, decided to try this alternative process called Caffenol, which is...
Spell that, because I feel like we're saying it kind of weird. It's caffeinol, like caffeine, right?
Yeah, it's named after the instant coffee that is a component ingredient. So it's spelled Caffenol. And it's a pun I'm not getting, according to the things I've read. Like, supposedly there's some joke about photochemicals in there. I don't know. The core ingredients of Caffenol are... well, I'll just show you. You need to get original caffeinated instant coffee. You can't use decaf. I don't know why. You need some vitamin C. Or, this isn't vitamin C. Distilled white vinegar. And then you do need some vitamin C, which is right here. So the basic process that we followed, and I will butcher this because I had a chemist friend while we were working on it. You mortar and pestle up your vitamin C tablets. I can give you a measure.
Are you measuring all this stuff on a little kitchen scale, or how do you know you have the right amount of it?
The vitamin C we can cheat, right, because the capsules are a given size. We know how much vitamin C is in a capsule, I should say. There's other stuff in there. So we just did the math based on, presumably, this vitamin C company measuring it. For the liquids, we have a graduated cylinder that we used, and then we've just been using teaspoons for the instant coffee. Oh, there's also another core ingredient, actually. So some of this stuff, I should say, I've ruined a lot of film. I've developed successfully 2 rolls of film. So I've probably ruined 8 rolls of film. So we went through this whole process the first time. We mix the ingredients. You heat up the ingredients on a stovetop. You integrate them all together. It's supposed to smell really bad. And we did it the first time, and it didn't really smell bad. We were using the other ingredient I neglected to mention, baking soda. You're not actually supposed to use baking soda. You're supposed to just use soda, like the straight stuff. This is some percentage baking soda.
So this is like a diluted version of soda?
Yeah, so this is sodium bicarbonate, I should say. Yeah. And what you actually need is carbonate, I think. It's a... So my chemist friend, sure of himself and our capabilities, that's why we have the vitamin C. Now I remember. We didn't include the vitamin C the first time. We didn't get the smelly reaction. So what we end up with was a very, very weak or completely non-existent developer. Also, at this point, Jeff had been, my friend's name is Jeff, reading about Fixer, and he thought that he understood the chemistry well enough that we could just gin some up with some ammonia. And
this seems like the worst idea ever, right?
Right. So it seems very nearly fatal, right? So we make it through this whole process. He's doing this chemical cocktail on the stove. Meanwhile, I've got my arms inside this black bag and inside of a photo can.
This is inside your studio apartment? Inside
my tiny studio apartment over there.
Ventilation hoods are probably industry standard kind of things, or
the window was open. It was fine.
So you were looking for a chemical reaction on your stovetop, Breaking Bad style.
Right. Somebody may have, made a cooking joke, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, so you take the film canister, you put it inside this black bag with a plastic can that you can pour liquid into, but it's light tight, and a spool. So you have to peel the film canister open, pull all the film out in this black bag, so you can't see what you're doing, you're just doing it blind. Cut the film out of the spool or tear it if you're super hardcore. I use scissors. You feed that onto this plastic spool so none of the film is touching itself, so you don't get sticky spots on your images where they were touching and didn't develop. And then you put that on a spool in this black can, close the black can, and then it's safe to take out of the bag. So you don't need a dark room, you just need a black bag to do that part of the process. So from here on out, you're just pouring chemicals into this thing and you can't see what it's doing. You have a question, or are you good? You look like you had a question.
No, I was going to say you don't just rip, like what I did, I took a photo class in high school and I would just, like, there's a slot in the roll of film and I would just
where the
rip
film
that
comes out.
open.
Yeah, so you do that to get it open.
You just peel that open, and isn't it on a tiny little spool in there that you can just detach, or is it permanently attached to that thing?
It is on a tiny. It is on a tiny little spool, but the point of putting it on the larger spool is it's a series of grooves, like a spiral. So all of the film has an air gap, so none of the film touches itself.
Yeah, you get like a spiral shape of film.
Yeah.
That sits inside of this little container.
So this first time, our chemical didn't make the terrible smell it was reported to make. We put it in. We waited a little longer because it didn't smell as bad as it was supposed to. We opened it up. We rinsed it, we fixed it, and we opened it up. And what we were left with was completely undeveloped, ruined film.
So it was just perfectly clear.
No, because it wasn't fixed.
It was just kind of gray.
So the film emulsion is opaque in the normal, non-exposed, non-developed state. When we so improperly developed it, it didn't turn clear like it's supposed to. So it was basically just wrecked. Our second attempt that same day.
This was like your friend's wedding that you'd taken photos at, or what was on this film? I
was fairly confident that this is how this was going to go. So I had gone out that morning, it was a Saturday, and just shot pictures around San Mateo of just not cool things. Like, there's a fire hydrant, there's a pole, you know. So it wasn't my masterpiece on this thing.
That's good.
I'm dumb, I'm not that dumb.
Yeah,
So we went to Safeway, we bought more things, we came home. Jeff spent some time scratching his head over the chemistry, and we thought we had it.
So that's the other kind of cool thing about doing this coffee developer is that you can go to a grocery store and pick up
and get your stuff. Right. And, I mean, that is cool, I grant you. I happen to live in a major city, and so do you. So, like, I could just go to a store and buy photochemical. Or, crazier, I could just get my film developed at a CVS.
Yeah.
But,
like
setting that aside, yeah. So, this story continues. We ruin film various ways. We finally refine our science down to, sort of science. We finally get it to the point where we're confident. So we put a roll of film in, we fire up the stovetop. I do the black bag stuff. Jeff crushes up the vitamin C. He mixes it with some ascorbic acid in a saucepan. We mix in the coffee, and it smells just terrible. Just awful, awful, awful. We dilute this with distilled water, and we think we got one. So we put it in the can. This is a new day, so I've actually gone and bought a commercial fixer at this point, because I don't think there's a way.
You wimped out.
I did wimp out. The thing the fixer does is it pulls those silvers you were mentioning out of the film.
Yeah.
And
so they can't react to light anymore.
Right, and also so that they are a super toxic liquid that you then have to figure out a way to deal with because you can't wash it down the sink.
Yeah, because there's like a heavy metal dissolved in the liquid.
Yes. So it seemed like it was, probably okay to wimp out on that one. So we put the stuff in. We leave it for 7 minutes. You agitate occasionally to make sure that there's no bubbles or whatever. Knocking on the counter, shake it, knocking on the counter. You don't do it too much. You get weird striations if it's moving the whole time, is what they tell me. Pour that out, rinse it through with water, put the stop in. The stop is also a commercial solution. You get a bag like this big of the powder to make just gallons of it for like, I don't know, it was like $7. So I have more stop than I will ever use.
What's in stop? Is it?
So stop reacts with the developer and stops it from developing. It precipitates it out and removes it from the film.
Is one like an acid and one a base, so they neutralize,
Yeah,
or is it something?
right. Yeah, so it's a redox. That's right.
Okay.
So then once the stop is out, you still have to do the fix. You put in the commercial fix, so you pour the stop out, you put some more water in it, you shake that around, you pour that out. You put the stop in, or the fix rather. Let it sit. Shake it occasionally. We open it up. Finally, it's done. We hang it from my
The chandelier?
the ceiling fan
Yeah.
with binder clips. And there's images, and it's great. It's super great, but it's not fully opaque because we didn't use the right amount of fixer in our dilution.
I thought you were going to say it wasn't pictures that you had taken.
Yeah, no, it was like
It was someone else's film.
Right. So then I had a week to live based on that experience. That's how that movie worked, right?
No.
I don't know that I've ever actually seen that movie.
You're referring to The Ring, and I think that's probably wrong. That was a VHS.
It's like
tape.
archaic. I mean, it's an archaic media.
Okay.
I think it works.
It's archaic.
We'll just go with that.
All right. Yeah, we'll just let it pass.
Yeah, no, we're gonna just let that one pass. But
so what happened to your pictures? It wasn't fully developed.
it was developed. It was a little dark, but not bad.
It was overdeveloped, maybe.
Maybe, but the fix wasn't complete. So the emulsion hadn't turned clear, and slowly, as it was in the light of my apartment,
disappearing before your eyes.
The pictures disappeared. So we did put it into more fix, but
Back to the Future style.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. All those people were replaced from the time stream.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Well, don't mess up developing. So the first successful attempt was the attempt after that, where we had everything all buttoned down.
You mailed it into some sort of commercial business that handles these sorts of things. You paid them a nominal fee, and they gave you images.
Yeah, it was $20, and I got scans and developed film. No, the first successful attempt, it was all the same stuff. We dotted our I's and crossed our T's. We kept the fixer in there a little bit longer. We actually have since found out you can use fixer a couple of times, so we were preserving that. And what we got, I have here, it won't show much, but I can show it to you. This is the last attempt. I won't show you that one yet. It's this one. So
this is the roll of film that you're going to show us?
Mm-hmm, yeah. So this is the first successful attempt, all right?
I don't see anything.
It's a little bit overdone. I'm not going to lie to you. So let's see if we can get you to see anything that's on here. So we thought it was gone. We thought we just messed up and overdeveloped. So
I think if you just hold it up to the camera and backlight it, maybe we'll see something.
That's the plan. So you can see there are pictures here. They're relatively low contrast, right? So we left it in the developer too long, so most of the images...
You were hunting for ghosts and you found them.
Right, yeah. No, I think that was a tree.
Oh, it's a tree.
So it could have been a ghost tree.
Well, it's a low-resolution camera, so...
Right. So, but we did get something we didn't think we had, but we finally, held the light up to it, and there you go. There are actual pictures here. So what this means, right, that it's so dark is we left it in the developer too long. Film is rated by its light sensitivity, and you develop it differently based on who made the film and based on that light sensitivity rating.
Right.
But in a pinch, you can overdevelop or underdevelop your film to get a different result out of it, or if you just need it to be faster.
Yeah,
and then
film school
develop it
they call pushing. That's called pushing.
Yeah, and pulling. So we essentially unintentionally pushed this film to probably, like the way I figure, probably around, I don't know.
So the way you would do
800 or
that,
600.
if you were meaning to, you would
Develop it longer.
If you had underexposed your film accidentally, you could maybe push it a stop in post.
Right.
And that would maybe bring your images back to a normal level.
Right. So we developed less time, right? We ran the roll again, and we developed less time, or a new roll rather. And this is what we got that time. So you can see the difference. So this is the opposite problem.
Do you feel like
So we
that wasn't
bracketed
there
it
long enough?
Right. So let's do the
That's
same.
good data though. You want to be creating your end zones there.
Right. So the worst thing that could happen, and it happened a couple of times, is pulling it out of the tank and having nothing happen. Like it just looked like it did when it went in. Because then you're sure everything went wrong, but you're not sure how. At this point, we're far enough along. Yeah, that's just completely blown away. You can't even see it with that light. It's too bright.
Barely anything's there. Yeah.
Yeah. But those are the two successes. So then I was able to sit down and set up my elaborate scanning rig and take pictures of them. And I do have pictures, and maybe we can put them on the Google Plus for.
Yeah, or you could. Do you have that screen share option on the side there? You could maybe.
Let's see. I don't know about this sharing my screen.
It's the green one.
There's
You don't have to. You can put them on as a comment or whatever. You can link to something.
Yeah, this is It's a work laptop, obviously.
Alrighty.
But yeah, so that's pretty much the story. So the next steps going forward, obviously we want to develop a successful roll consistently. And I will admit that there was a little bit of wind taken out of my sails when that one camera met an untimely fate. So we've lost a little bit of pace there. So
you haven't actually done a roll that was like kind of perfect yet. You're still on the hunt for that.
Right. So we've got
a dark roll, you've got a really bright roll.
Right. So we've got stable images. I mean, this was developed 2 months ago, and the images are holding. The film's got a good color. The Caffenol people says you have better smelling film if you use Caffenol.
Because it smells like coffee?
No, it just smells like nothing, which is rather pleasing if you've ever been around developed film. Yeah, so then, easy. Professionalism. I like it. Yeah, so the next step would be to consistently be able to develop straight up. And then the hard mode thing I want to do, color chemistry is really hard. Probably won't get into that without using commercial chemical, at least.
Yeah, even then it's difficult.
Yeah, it's more temperature sensitive. And but the other thing I want to try and do with film is there's a process to do positives out of normal negative film, and I haven't read it in a while, so I may misrepresent it. But the general idea is you develop the film, and you don't do that fix step. So the way the silvers react, you're able to wash them off, essentially. So you develop the film, and then take it out while it's still light sensitive, and you just cook it in a bright light. And then you wash it aggressively and then fix it. So then what you do is everything turned black, but you wash away the stuff that is in the highlights, the stuff that reacted the first time. So that's a very bad presentation of that, and I can read the documentation.
It maybe ends up as a positive when you're done with that?
Right. So the idea is, and this is not like too crazy. It's is it T-Max? No, the company Arista maybe. The company that makes a particular black and white film that's not anything special. Post a document on how to do this. So this is like a thing you can do, but it's quite a few more steps. It seems like hard mode. So once we can consistently get the black and white, I think that would be the Everest, right? If you can do the positive process.
I'm not sure why Google Hangouts chose to cut to me just now me like rubbing my nose quietly. But that's the ghost in the machine there.
Your mic's right here. I mean, maybe there's something out of frequency range, or
Maybe.
I don't know, man.
So let's talk about the recipe again, quick. The recipe
Sure.
I have in front of me is water. This is to make the developing solution. So like, you've got exposed film, you need to develop it. Water,
Right. Mm-hmm.
baking soda,
Washing soda.
washing soda, which is like a more...
It's
What?
a slightly different thing. So I'm gonna Google it right now. I'm sorry, internet.
Vitamin
but I'm
C.
looking away from my camera. So it's sodium carbonate versus sodium bicarbonate, and it reacts more fully when it ionizes. I think this is me misrepresenting Jeff.
Uh-huh.
The sodium carbonate does a better job of being whatever it needs to be for the reaction that's going on.
Maybe sodium, I'm not a chemist, but maybe sodium bicarbonate has less available electron potential to make reactions.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It sounds like good. Those are good words.
That sounds like science.
Yeah.
All right, so
anyway,
water,
very important.
baking soda,
Washing soda.
washing soda. Vitamin C, what does that do?
So the thing about caffeinol that I actually find really interesting is people are kind of like, I don't know why it works. It just works. There's one academic paper that a chemist did in the early 90s that apparently kicked it all off. But it was an undergraduate paper, I think, and he didn't really go too much into the chemistry of what actually is happening. I don't know what the vitamin C does.
There's
I know
some young genius who discovered this process using household chemicals. And,
yeah.
All right.
I know when you mix
coffee,
it
why
with
is
the
that
instant
important?
coffee, people think that it's the caffeine, which is why you have to buy the caffeinated variety.
It doesn't work with decaf coffee.
All the recipes I've seen, and I haven't tried decaf coffee because all the recipes tell me not to, but all the recipes I've seen are very explicit that thou shalt not use decaf coffee for this. And it's got to be instant.
Okay.
Instant coffee crystal.
And then the last thing I have on this list is potassium bromide.
That I don't use.
What is that? Why do people do that?
I think it's something about I don't know, man. I remember reading about it, but yeah, we've never used it.
This is really similar to The Alchemists. You're searching for gold in just household items. You don't know why it works.
Right. Well, the other thing is like there's a lot of people who have done this with varying success, and there's different films with slightly different chemistries. So your recipe you have here too says 15 minutes, and I think our final version we only ran 7, and it got cooked that bad.
Wow.
So it's kind of, I can actually look at the notes here.
You must have made it pretty strong because it seems like 4 minutes is what I was
right. And we also
commercial stuff.
We also heated it, which obviously speeds up the well, maybe not obviously. Seems to speed up the reaction, but not very much. Just on the stovetop to help the vitamin C dissolve in the other ingredients. So let me see.
Yeah, the recipe I'm looking at is 21 degrees Celsius water, and he's very
which is room temperature.
Right.
20 degrees.
The fact that it's the same temperature every time helps you with the timing.
Consistency.
Exactly the same, then you know this amount of time is going to get a good result instead of having to guess.
Right. I'm looking for my development times here in this notebook. It was a little bit longer than I quoted at you. The last one we did, which was the lighter one, was 11 minutes. So it was a little longer for that. The dark one was a long one. It was 20 minutes. So there you go. So it wasn't that far off this 15 minutes, but I think it was a little bit.
So 20 minutes, 11 minutes, the next time you might try 15.
Yeah, we might actually see what this guy said. Absolutely.
I like his images. The guy we're talking about, I wish we should link to his video or something.
I'm not sure where you got this recipe.
The German guy.
The
right,
Caffeinol guy.
yeah, right now it's on caffeinol.org, but I'll put a link to his YouTube video
Cool.
on the show because it's very it's very interesting. A German guy named Dirk Essel.
And it's probably about 1,000,000 times more informative.
He
We're very
seems
much
to know what
sleep
he's
out.
doing, but we're all standing on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
just trying
Also,
to-
it's kind of our line, Aaron, that we don't know what we're doing. So that's sort of
yeah. Well, that covers a lot of our wrongs, I think.
Yeah. No, it's great.
I'm hoping that holds up in court.
Yeah. No, I hope to not ever have to go to court over this particular issue, but let's see.
Yeah. Cool. So is this something you're going to continue trying to do? Like, you feel like you've had successes enough that it's worth doing, or?
Yeah, I think we did take very explicit notes, so we know what we did those last couple of times that functioned. So I think that now we would be able to knock down some good, consistent results. So I do think we'll do at least a couple more until we can get consistency. I haven't been shooting as much on film just because it's been busy, but once I do that, because I don't, now that it's getting to the point where we do get pictures out of it, I don't just want to have pictures of neighborhood dogs. So it's kind of happening as I get the film shot.
Your neighbors who own those dogs will probably appreciate you stopping taking pictures of their pet.
Yeah, well, seeing as I've had to do it like 8 times at this point for every single roll of film I destroyed, I think, yeah, it was probably wise to lay low for a little bit, lest I end up on some sort of watch list.
So how much do the chemicals cost? Like, if you need to make a batch of this stuff, the developer you're making with household kind of things, but you're buying fixer, you're buying stop.
Right. I think I probably spent $25 or $30 on real chemical, and if I had bought developer, it really wouldn't have been that much more. You also need the black bag and a tank, but that was another probably 15 to 20. So it's actually, I mean, the break-even point's probably, if you're doing the scan thing too, 100 pictures, 200 pictures, somewhere in there.
Well, the nice thing is that
obviously, if you're shooting,
you don't actually need a darkroom because your end process is to do like a pseudo negative scan and then take that into Photoshop.
Right.
So you could order, until you start developing your own prints, you could order prints or put them on the internet straight away.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's probably the endpoint for me normally is the internet. The other thing that would be interesting would be, once we're getting consistency, try to calibrate that process. Have a light that is reportedly the same color temperature. So then set it up so I know I'm getting accurate reproduction of the images as much as possible. I'm obviously not crazy worried about it. I'm developing my film with coffee. But if you're doing it, you might as well try to get good results. So.
Cool. I think it's pretty awesome that a guy who makes artisanal iced coffee 1 cup at a time in his home actually purchased instant coffee crystals.
Yeah, no, I went with the Safeway Kitchens brand, which I just... like, as you can see, it's got pictures of what may be coffee beans or possibly some sort of insect on the container.
I think it's kind of clever of that designer to abstract the coffee out. It's
yeah, I'm not even sure how to make this into coffee. I assume you just put it in water, right?
You could probably drink your developing solution, right?
No. Those are all really well labeled. Right, everything that's ever touched photochemical is so, like, safety warninged up in my cabinet. So yeah, let's finish with this, Aaron. I think this is good. So this is the only accurate information I've given you all night. To make coffee, use 1 slightly rounded teaspoon per 6 fluid ounce cup and add boiling water. Stir. Makes up to 120 cups. Vary measurements to suit your taste. This is a rich, full-bodied coffee. It is made from a blend of fine coffees from 1 or more of the following countries: Vietnam, Indonesia, Madagascar, Tanzania, Uganda, or Cameroon. So there you go. That's how you make Safeway Select Instant Coffee. Is that right?
That's
Super
wonderful.
Kitchen.
Yeah, I want a cup of that right now.
All right. So what are we talking about next time, man? Do we know that?
I think we've got that camping trip coming up with Greg. I'd love to have a working time-lapse dolly by then, so I think we're going to have to do some live diagnostics, because I still haven't figured out why it's broken right now.
All right. Yeah, no, I dig that. So we'll do some coding live, maybe on screen, and then staring at the dolly moving slowly via the internet.
Potentially.
That's the plan.
Or not moving at all. It could be that exciting.
Tune in next time. That's we need to maybe reconsider this in terms of our teases. We need to like sell grander. We might maybe get a thing to work. That's not. I don't know. All right.
We're all a work in progress.
It's the journey. It's the journey.
It's the journey. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that about does it for this episode. So.
All right.
I will talk to you soon.
All right. Do we have a sign off yet? We don't.
I think we say bye a lot, and then we're gonna cut it, but then we don't.
And then we compare it to like the Lord of the Rings ending, and you're like, man, I just want to go upstairs and be done watching this movie. And it starts up again, and then they're at the docks, and you're like, no, I get it. You already said goodbye to all of these people.
Right, but they were saying goodbye to us. Right. That's what it was really about.
All right,
anyway,
so bye.
Bye, Will.